match. India have won the series.
They're going to get back for two. India at home. Lords goes wild.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the 81 All Out podcast. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan at Sidvi on Twitter. And I'm joined today by three guests, special guests. We have Subhash Jayaraman, the cricket coach. Hi, Subhash.
Hey, Sid.
Hey, we have Ashoka at AB Van on Twitter. Hi, Ashoka.
Hey, man.
Hey, and we also have from Pakistan, Amer, who's been kind enough to join us on a couple of podcasts before. Hey.
Sidvi, when we weren't recording, you had my pronunciation perfect. It's Amer, and I'm very happy to be here, as always.
Amer,
okay.
I think Sidvi's performance is like reflecting Pakistan's, and practice plans seems to have something okay, we learned from the previous mistakes. Okay, this is what we will not do. And then he goes and does it. So I think it's par for the course.
I think it symbolizes what we just saw today. We are here to talk about India-Pakistan after the World Cup match. A pretty lopsided game, except for a few phases here and there. But mostly lopsided. India ended up winning. And so we're going to talk about the game. We did have a preview of the game as well, which I'll link in case you want to go back and listen to what we thought of what is going to happen and predictions. I think all of us anyway predicted that the result as it turned out, and India ended up winning as we expected. But let me bring in Subhash first. Any surprise at all, Subhash? Or
it'd be disingenuous to say that we were surprised by the result, considering what me and Amer said in the preview podcast of how, considering the disparity in talent and skill level and depth of the side, that the India should win quite comfortably. However, still, considering that India were missing the number one choice opener, and they were opening with somebody that was pulled into the side on the last minute as the number 4, and introducing a new guy at number 4 for his World Cup debut, and having their first choice seamer, leaving after only bowling 16 deliveries or 14 deliveries. Giving all that, you would think Pakistan would have given themselves much better account of themselves. The fact that did not happen is a surprise.
So let's get the Pakistani reaction now. So I did see a few tweets from you, and you were, in fact, went on a much larger kind of a context when you spoke about the decline of Pakistani cricket, music, and other popular culture as well. Was it something that just occurred to you, or is it something you've been talking about for a while?
I was just saying that, growing up in the 90s, there was cricket and music were basically the two passions that everyone my age had. And in a sense, I've been very lucky to work in both these fields as I've grown older. The unlucky part being that I've had to witness the kind of decline and despair quite upfront and firstly, and it's perhaps an indictment of the rest that cricket is still not as depressing as where the other kind of facets of culture are. But I think I mean, what Subhash said about Pakistan failing to capitalize on the both Indian opening batter and bowler being ruled out. I mean, that is theoretically a possibility, but this Pakistan side feels so far behind in terms of not just where the other teams are, but where its own players used to be. If you look at somebody like Hassan Ali's rapid regression, Shadab has been out of the game for a while. He had that whole hepatitis issue, but he's not really looked completely himself. It hasn't helped that they haven't picked him regularly. The bowling in general, Amir accepted, has been pretty terrible, and then with the batting as well. I mean, Shoaib Malik's continued selection will probably now end, but now that we've been knocked out of the World Cup, and I don't even know what to say to that beyond the fact that this is just something that's been persisting in Pakistan for a while. They have been for the last two World Cups as well as the last decade or so. There's a whole bunch of external factors, but they haven't really done much to kind of correct course at a very fundamental level. I think that's what this match represented. Like I feel that moment that you really knew what this match was going to be like was when Rohit and Rahul literally were gifting a run out to Pakistan, but then Fakhar throws at the wrong end, which Wahab fails to collect. Which the second guy then throws to the other end, and by that time Rohit's made it. Like I think at that point it was clear that even if India mess up spectacularly, Pakistan are just not in the mind frame or the ability to execute their skills to take advantage.
What do you attribute that? Is it to skills that you attribute it to alone, or is it also like something else, like the mentally that also is happening?
I mean, I think I was speaking to Rashid Latif, the former wicketkeeper. I asked him pretty much the same question, and his answer was that by and large, the weaker team will usually feel more nerves because as over time, like the stronger team will come out more often. And if you really are going to see an upset, then it would mean, firstly, overcoming those nerves, but also having a lot of things go your way, like it happened in the Champions Trophy final. And I think this team, every time it walks in, it already knows that it's much, much more inferior. And then that kind of, has, if Pakistan finds any sort of confidence or nerves or overcoming their nerves, it usually happens because they're on, they have some momentum going for them, or they have some, they've hit rock bottom, or so. I think, if the number ninth or eighth ranked team in the world takes on the world number one side, I'm sure they'll feel a bit of nerves. And if there's like so much pressure about it, and a 6-0 record to overcome, I think that obviously makes it a lot harder. I feel that maybe how we dissect this match might not apply to previous encounters, but I think over here there's really not much to see, or not much to overthink. It's a really weak side that kind of was coming into a big pressure match, and it balked at the occasion.
I mean, India is not a entirely bulletproof side. They have their weaknesses. You could say they are over reliant on the top three, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, that's the job. The top three is to produce the runs. However, when towards the end they couldn't really, you needed somebody coming in at 4, 5. Whether it's Hardik Pandya at 4 and Rahul at 5, or vice versa. Additional hitting depth would have helped to push the score where would have batted Pakistan entirely out of the game. There was a theoretical possibility when Pakistan started the chase. So that's, I would say, and Mohammad Amir bowled really well. He knew exactly what he needed to do for the middle order batsmen, so they couldn't get a move on and they couldn't make the score balloon beyond Pakistan's even theoretical reach.
But just going purely by the tactical aspect of it, given that they won the toss and decided to field first, and even Kohli said that he would have fielded first too. So there was probably something there. Do you think that there was also a question of the execution of skills? I mean, people were talking about the lengths they were bowling, and perhaps the first 10 to 15 overs they didn't utilize as well as they could have.
I think with the nature of what the Pakistan team composition is, chasing was probably a very bad idea. Because when you know that Hafiz and Shoaib Malik and Imad Wasim comprises of your, and Sarfraz comprise of your lower order, like even in a shortened game, the worst case for them was chase like 150, 160 in 20 overs, or the best case would have been to bundle out India. So, but the other way around, if they had batted first and even had made like 260, 270, a shortened game would give them a far better chance, given that Amir and perhaps even Wahab come into the picture and straight away get into the dead bowling mode rather than try to restrict India for a longer number of overs. And secondly, I seriously question the method of bowling short to Rohit. Once he's like in the 20s or 30s, I didn't understand why they were repeatedly bowling short. I mean, The other day we saw West Indies bowl shot to Root, and they carried it till the 40th over, 40th, 50th over, and by which time, the match was done. They kept doing it in the hope that, okay, the next ball at least one wicket will come. I don't know what the plan was at all. So I thought that Hassan Ali and Wahab probably bowled far too short and down the leg. It was very apparent. I am no expert, but it was very apparent from the way that they were bowling that this is not something that is going to give you the wicket of Rohit Sharma, probably once he has crossed like 40 or 50.
When the skill gap is so much between two teams, right? At some point, you do things not because you think it's going to work. You hope that it'll work. That's like bowling short after Rohit is set. You would score 57 of 23 balls or 22 balls, something like that. Basically strike rate of 200 on short deliveries per time. The way he was going to get out was, either run out, Pakistan could execute a run out, or that he will, trying to clear short fine leg, you'll actually hit it to the hands of short fine leg. There was no other way. Everybody pretty much knew after he got 30, 40 that, this guy is down for a 200 today.
With regards to the toss, I feel that obviously, the way the game turned out, it looked like a really bad decision. I think in the defense of the Pakistani think tank, given the fact that there's been rain predicted for quite a few days, there's been rain throughout this tournament, and that they would expect that to get some assistance early on in the morning, and more importantly, when you're chasing if there's been rain, the outfield gets wetter. It's harder for the spinners to come in. So there's advantages to that, which obviously Pakistan couldn't take. And also, I think the other thing, the mood in Pakistan at least, was because Pakistan really seems to switch on better in T20 cricket. And obviously, when you reduce the number of overs, it reduces, it gives the weaker team more of a chance. So there was a feeling that a rain-shortened match would play in Pakistan's favor. And in that sense, perhaps that's why, that was the decision that they were going with. And as it turned out, they couldn't take advantage of the conditions because Amir apart, everybody else just was not consistent. So, there's maybe a few deliveries in his entire spell that Hassan Ali was getting it right, Wahab the same, but it was such a lack of consistency where CricViz had this stat showing that on average, both teams found the same amount of swing, but on specific deliveries, Indian bowlers are finding a lot more swing, largely because they were pitching it in a consistent area. And Amir apart, nobody did that for Pakistan, and which meant that, then panic stations, you start turning to the short ball, even though it's not working, hoping that something works rather than knowing that something will work.
Let's get to the batting, though. Irrespective of what the bowling team does and everything else, this was a couple of really solid innings, I would say. Especially the Rohit innings. There was once he got to 30, as we've seen so many times in the past, and there's some solidity about him, right? It's almost impenetrable, very difficult to get him out. He's so good with any length. He hit that six square six, which everyone was reminded of the Tendulkar shot from 2003. Then he took on the spinners. Like again, no bowler really seems to matter. And he gets into that zone where, as you said, you just feel that there has to be something that goes wrong for him to get out.
Obviously he's a phenomenal batsman, and he has shown that over his last, 11 years of playing international cricket. And today what he did that was interesting was with Shikhar Dhawan missing, who would usually do the initial bulk of scoring while Rohit Sharma gets set in. Today he allowed KL Rahul, who is now pushed up to open, to take his time, and while Rohit got the deliveries to score off of. And KL Rahul was playing out Mohammad Amir. And once batsman of the class of Rohit Sharma gets set in, the margin of error is so tiny and especially a batsman of the capabilities of Rohit Sharma, that he can manufacture boundaries from anywhere. Tiniest differences in length or width, he puts it away for a boundary. So there's really no pressure on him to, rotate the strike or keep the scoreboard ticking, all that stuff. He can do pretty much anything he wants. He's that good. And with only one bowler in the opposition really challenging anything, challenging the batsman. It was open season for him. So he could have done, he could have scored another double hundred today.
You think that all the concerns that people brought forth before the World Cup in terms of India's batting, you think they were overblown, or do you think India could still find themselves in a situation in the knockouts, perhaps even where their number 5, 6, 7 suddenly become exposed with not much on the board?
I think the concerns themselves were that during the knockouts, this middle order is something that will be tested, that may be tested, because the wins we had. I mean, fair enough, we ticked good boxes, right? Like in the South Africa match, Rohit played exceptionally well. I thought that was his best 100 of the tournament. Though this is like 140, then that is 120. I mean, yeah, I'm still dicey about Vijay Shankar and Kedar Jadhav, like following Dhoni.
When you see the likes of Rohit and Kohli, and then both Hardik and Dhoni weren't exactly looking the most. I know Hardik's had some good runs, but they weren't looking the most reassuring. But I think that being said, again, batting is only half of the game, and I think that when you look at if Bhuvaneshwar is comes back from his injury, and you've got Bumrah, you've got those spinners. India's got a very, very good bowling attack, and I think that's the balance at least the team management should be looking at. Like when I listen to the analysis, I feel that there's way too much discussion about the batting and what the batting may or may not do. When in fact, I think the smart thing to do is you've got all these great talents and you act according to the situation.
I mean, it's a byproduct of watching the Indian cricket team of 80s and 90s, I suppose, which is, we had some very obviously great batsmen, but not so great bowlers, or nothing like the collection of bowlers India has right now that you forget to ever consider bowling in your equation when you're talking about a cricket match. So it'll take some time to get used to that, and then you'll see the overall balance of the team.
And there's another point as well in this, especially when it comes to India-Pakistan World Cup matches. There are a large set of people, and many of whom are celebrities on social media and celebrities in the media space and things, who don't follow this Indian cricket team day in and day out. So if you ask them what happened in 2 series ago, they won't necessarily be able to tell you. But because it's India-Pakistan and the hype machine and things, they come and they sort of start following this game. And then somehow in their head, they'll make a statement saying that even 320 is not enough on this pitch. It's simply because they're basing it on whatever little data points they have, which is not much. And then without realizing that India actually has a bowling attack to even defend 250. If they had made only 250, you would still say that the bowling attack, you would give them a chance. But I think when it comes to India-Pakistan, the opinion space is so wide and varied and often so ill-informed that you have these narratives just going berserk.
I mean, there is another aspect to it too, which is that, the necessity of the person watching the game. Because as you said, not everybody is tuned in for every game that India play or every India-Pakistan game because it's World Cup hyped up. So everybody is tuned in. They want to say that I watched that game, that India completely decimated Pakistan. So what is better than saying, oh, if they score 450 and bowl, and then Pakistan crumbles under the chase pressure or whatever, then they're like, they get to watch India win without any stress. And I've kind of experienced this feeling also while watching it in a stadium in 2015 World Cup. That's like, oh, India scored a big score. And people were like relieved. Like, given the Pakistan lineup, they knew Pakistan was not going to really challenge the total. So now it's a party atmosphere, selfie time.
You kind of almost dread this game because you know that there'll be a lot of stupid things in the atmosphere. If there's, it has an outsized impact on what people think and say about the teams. It really distorts the reality around the situation. And then worst of all, it just leads to a very one-sided kind of terrible match. I get that feeling from a lot of Indians as well, where, that of course no one's going to scoff at beating your rivals, but it's just that it would be a lot more fun that if they were playing a match where their team had to actually be tested or stretched a little bit. Like again, in the only time Pakistan has won in recent times, that was also a one-sided match. So it's for people who are invested in the cricket of it, there's not so much to enjoy. In fact, I felt this was probably the worst out of all 7 matches. I don't think there's ever been a match where, and probably 2015 comes closest. But even in that, I think there was at the start and near the end, there was this feeling that that Pakistan might still come back into it. I think at this match, at no point did you feel that India are in trouble. And I think when Dhoni got out and it looked like, okay, maybe they can do something, that's when it rained. And when they come back out, they do a lot better. So, yeah, like I feel just if we just take ourselves out from this situation of what we're supporting and as just cricket fans, it's actually bad for the sport, right? Like, obviously this rivalry might endure because of all these other factors. But as people who are enjoying the game, it's so disappointing that such a big rivalry does not throw up a good match.
The hype around this game, and at least in the recent meetings that we have seen, doesn't really match up to the actual cricket on the field. So, then what is the point of all this hype?
I mean, I think, hype obviously is not being generated for the match, right? Like the people who are most guilty of it are doing it for their own purposes, whether it's the corporations or whether it's celebrities, politicians. They're cashing in on something, on an idea that's huge and prevalent at that moment, and they're trying to center themselves in it. So the thing is that when India and Pakistan play a really close game, that creates a spectacle and memories that literally last a generation. They hook an entire generation of fans in. And so I think that's perhaps the other thing that you're aware of, that if all this hype and jingoism actually gets married to a good match, then that's a win-win for everyone. Like I think when I was thinking back to all the really close matches between those sides, in the aftermath, there's actually a lot more camaraderie and good vibe rather than I would say anger or whatever. And obviously that isn't guaranteed always. But overall, I think this is the worst case scenario. What we witnessed today is, I think, just for the sport and for fans who have to endure all the jingoism. Like a match like this really is the worst payoff that cricket can give you.
Correct. And the last time any exciting match that happened between these two teams was the 2008 T20 World Cup or 2007 T20 World Cup, where in those two matches there was a fantastic bowl out in the first match, and the finals where Misbah scoops it to Srisak. So I think that was the last time that I can remember that any India-Pakistan match lived up to the billing. After that, 2011, not really. I mean, 2011 was a weird match where I don't think even both teams were going full throttle. They were kind of holding back. It was a stalemate kind of a game where one team made 260, another team made 230. 2015, as you said, was horrible. And this one was even more horrible. So it's been 11 years. And throughout these 11 years, whenever we see, we have been like inundated with like unnecessary hype, where I mean the whole Mocha Mocha was 2015, right? I mean, campaign wise it was a fantastic campaign, but the match did not live up to it. It was a bad cricket contest. So yeah, it does I don't know about what it does for the game, but it does not make for a pleasant experience, whatever you hype it up to.
Was there any point in the Pakistani chase that any of you guys felt that, okay, this might be close? I mean, there was a good partnership between Fakhar Zaman and Babar Azam. Did any of you feel?
No, no. There was, so even during that partnership, they were trying to play the game where conserving wickets, keeping the run rate at 5. But even then, it felt very inevitable. Like this was the asking rate was going above 7.5, 8, and there were like 30 odd overs to chase it down. So, given that Hafiz, Shoaib Malik in poor form, Sarfraz and Imad were the resources that they had, it was looking very bad for Pakistan even then.
I mean, given that the asking rate at the beginning of the innings was what, 6.7, something like that, and given the modern day restrictions on fielding, you can score 5 runs and over quite easily without taking risk, which is what Pakistan did, which is what Australia did too against India. Um, However, you knew, given the score on the board and the quality of the bowlers, and as the ball gets older, it's going to grip more, it's going to turn more. We saw Imad Wasim turn and bounce one. He's a finger spinner. But with the two wrist spinners bowling, you knew taking risks against them is going to be difficult. And the guys were trying, and Pakistani batsmen were trying to play out Kuldeep, and Kohli was, in a staring contest basically. He's like, I'm going to keep Kuldeep on till your run rate goes up, which means you have to, at some point, go after him. And, obviously the delivery that got Babar Azam was great. But to answer the question, no, you didn't feel like they are getting close. It's just that they were delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, that they're talking about like playing for the DLS and conserving the wickets. I think it was also, I mean, if Babar and Fakhar had like, and I'm sure they must be aware of it, that, it's really the top three that's been putting up the big scores for Pakistan. So unless like both of these had hundreds, there was nothing going to happen for Pakistan anyway. Like I think at most at that point, what you felt was that, like Fakhar was getting a couple of boundaries and etc. Is that had these guys played another 10 overs or so, then you have some vague possibility starting at that point. We could have answered your question with, yeah, maybe it felt something was possible. The way that Fakhar and Babar both went out wasn't anything that, that the ballers really got on top of them, whatever. And so, again, it just kept feeling like, that even getting the simple things right was something that was beyond Pakistan.
Yeah, the one thing to talk about though is from the Indian bowling perspective. I mean, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar couldn't take part for most of the innings because he got that tightness in his when he was bowling, a bit of a niggle, I guess, but which he was sat out. But Vijay Shankar and Hardik Pandya, I mean, you could say some bad batting. You could also say some good balls here and there, but they did end up being frontline seamers. And if you see the figures, they ended up doing better than Bumrah even.
Yeah, actually, Manjrekar announced it on air, saying that Vijay Shankar outperformed Bumrah. I don't know how often that's going to happen. I mean, by sheer numbers, sure. But that was also a product of the match situations that was going to happen. But by and large, as Amar indicated earlier, this is a very well-rounded Indian bowling attack. They have decent depth, and they have the magic of Kedar Jadhav that they didn't even have to go to today. So I mean, even though Bumrah didn't really cause damage, and when after the second interruption, he was just he wasn't really Bumrah. Taken for runs, 7 overs 40 or something like that. That I don't expect that to happen because the match was by then done and dusted. But India does have a concern with Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. I think Kohli mentioned in the post-match that he's going to be held back for at least 3 to 4 games, and he might make a comeback towards the latter part of the tournament, which means Shami comes in. Shami is obviously a tremendous bowler. The only concern there is that Bhuvi can hold a bat, whereas Shami can't at number 8.
So coming to the rest of the tournament, so what do you see? Where do you see Pakistan going from here? And is it again? Do they have to rely on that bringing back that momentum somehow? With is it going to be a game or two here and there, or is there something that you think they can do to put in that get that string of 2-3 wins going?
Yeah, Pakistan is probably going to the Allama Iqbal International Airport in Lahore next, because that's where the mathematics of the table suggests that that's also where I mean, their situation suggests that. I've been saying this right from the beginning of the tournament. I fully expect us to have a defeat to one of Bangladesh or Afghanistan, and so those two teams are our last two matches. With the jokes apart, with the net run rate already so destroyed, and the way I think there's just 4 games left, the final spot really, the two Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan would need to overcome those, and that would mean those two sides dropping points rather than us doing anything. So I have zero hopes of anything happening for Pakistan.
And from the Indian perspective, I mean, they have a few days off now. They take on Afghanistan at the next weekend, and then after that, of course, you have you have England and West Indies. And so, Subhash, you see India just getting better, or do you see this Bhuvi injury and probably playing a part in them having a couple of hiccups?
They have a week off, and then they play a team that, even if not the India, the second string Indian lineup should also be able to beat. That gives them plenty of time for not only Bhuvneshwar Kumar to get better. If it's not a tear, he should get better. The fact that, the moment he felt, they took him out of the game rather than because he was trying to bowl with it, which means it's not a completely torn hamstring. So that's a good sign. And it also gives additional time for Shikhar Dhawan to heal and come back into the side. So I would say things would look better. I mean, I don't think there are major worries for India yet. So they should continue with what they have.
They are facing Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. So you would expect them to win even 3 or 3 of them. England and West Indies, yeah, sure. Even if they lose those two, I think they will be in the top 4 regardless.
Yeah, I think now it's pretty much a question of rankings now. I mean, as soon we're going to reach a point probably where the top 4 teams are pretty clear, and then it becomes who plays who. And again, I don't even know if that matters, because irrespective of whether India plays Australia in the semis or New Zealand in the semis or England in the semis, I mean, it's still like a knockout. So so we will definitely be bringing you some reviews from all those games. And thank you so much for joining us on this review podcast.
Thanks, Sid.
Thanks, Subhash. Thanks, Ashoka. Thanks, Amir. And we will continue to bring you more podcasts. It brings us to the end of this episode. But please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you prefer. Also, please leave a rating and a review so that people can find us. And you can follow us on Twitter at 81allout. And check out all our previous podcasts and articles on our website, that is 81allout.com. So we'd love to hear from you. So please send us feedback. Thank you and goodbye.
In the air, Srishan takes it. India win. He'll come back for the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series.
They're going to get back for 2. India